Hello. For my presentation, I thought I would do reforesting with biodiversity. So, when we hear about replanting of forest areas that have usually been deforested, we see a lot of famous people just, say that they're going to plant 1,000 trees or donate 10,000 trees. But there's a lot more to a rainforest than just trees. So the problem with just planting trees to combat deforestation is that there's many more species, a few of which are carnivorous plants, vines, fruit trees, scrub trees, ferns, fungi, flowers, bushes, and then even many more. So the current methods of planting, as you know, many famous people donate huge sums of money to replant rainforest, and they think that this will give them a good image, and it oftentimes does, but it doesn't do much for preserving habitat or saving many animal or plant species. Biodiversity is the reason why habitats exist in the first place, and it's the reason why many plant and animal species can thrive. Over two-thirds of all the plant species in the world are in the rainforest, and some of these are the hardest hit by deforestation. So understanding deforestation. To understand deforestation, you have to look at the reasons why it occurs and what it does to the forests that are cut down in those areas. Deforestation is oftentimes due to the harvesting and production of lumber, but there are other reasons, such as expansion of farmland for livestock, urban development, and although these are not as easy to combat, we can definitely combat the deforestation that is used for the production of lumber, and that's what I'm going to focus on for the rest of the presentation. Deforestation also pollutes water sources, dry soils that are normally damp and shaded by the canopies of rainforest, and it destroys habitats for many animal species. So here's another just further explanation why planting trees does help, but is not the solution. So planting trees does help to rebuild habitat for plants and animals, but the process may harm certain species in the process. It can also take abundant amount of time. Canopies of trees in deforested areas, many native species may be not able to return because of the drier, less covered climate. Maybe the tree species will regrow, but the shrubs, ferns, flowers, and other many plants that are usually under those trees that rely on a cool, damp, shaded area may never return or may take many, many years to return because of the time that it takes for those trees that are the large canopy trees to regrow. And not every species of plant and animals are prepared for this or have the resilience to last 50, 40, 70 years, who knows how long. Best estimates are between 40 and 60 before many of the plant species return, or the normal plant species begin to return. So the animals that live in specialized habitats provided by these plants may never return and they may go extinct. So finding balance. You could easily say that it's too big of a problem. We're overwhelmed with how do you pick plant species and what species are more important than others. But the truth is that there are a few staple plant species in the rainforest that a lot of other species kind of build around. And trees are one of those, the large hard oaks, hardwoods, and canopy trees. But there's more to that. We need to plant different species of plants that play different roles within the rainforest. They need to be selected by the layers, the vertical layers that they inhabit, ranging anywhere from the canopy all the way to the forest floor. Plants also need to be selected on what they produce in the form of food and habitat for other plant and animal species. And that is a huge, huge priority is, can this plant produce something for many other plants and many other animal species around it? So here are some examples of some different species that we could plant in order to better reforest deforested rainforests. A lot of forest, I know. Epiphytes are plants that live on other plants. These are usually in the form of vines, but they can have both symbiotic and parasitic relationships with other plants. And both of these relationships are actually good for restoring biodiversity. The symbiotic relationships allowed other species to grow in with them and provides habitat for those plant species and also then small insects and then larger animals that eat the insects. And then also the parasitic relationships, vines that eventually strangle and or wrap themselves around other plants and consume them. Those plants fall to the forest floor and then provide more nutrients for insects and also the future generation of plants. Another one is orchids. Now, you could just say flowers in general, but orchids are found throughout the rainforest and they provide many insects with food and water source and shelter. So there are actually mites and other insects that live in orchids. There are ants and beetles and other species that use them for water supply and for food supply. And there's actually a third kind of smaller ants, and there's also many other smaller insects that live in orchid patches and use them for habitat. So they are all three of the big ones that we're looking for. And then there's straggler figs. Now, straggler figs, there's a variety of different figs and other fruit producing vines, but these are crucial in a strange way. They have that parasitic relationship with the trees that they surround themselves, that they grow around. They eventually strangle those trees, but the interesting thing about straggler figs is that they're so dense and they have such much of a structure that even if the tree rots away, the vine itself can still be left standing on its own. Straggler figs live, up to about 100 years, and they continue to produce figs, which many primates and other insects and animals eat. So they produce soil from the trees that they eventually consume that fall to the forest floor. They are habitat. They produce food for many other species. So they are a crucial part of making the rainforest perform the way it does. Bamboo species. So there's many kinds of bamboo species, but they're very important for several ways. They provide food and shelter to insects and small herbivores. Bamboo is also a huge source of biomass. So they are, just abundance, and they grow very quickly. They kind of inhabit the middle layer of the rainforest. They can grow up to about 60 or 70 feet generally. They usually don't make it much higher than that, but they're a big biomass resource, and they're used for many different kinds of products that we consume every day. So they're very important. Also, moss. So there are thousands of species known to exist, and many of these do inhabit the rainforest. But moss are very crucial in cleaning water that could have been contaminated. Some of these water sources are clean enough to drink. They do help purify the air. They also provide shelter for small insects, and they continue to die and regrow and produce more biomass for more moss to grow. And then softwoods. Softwoods are kind of trees that are known for their softer, more flexible wood. There's hundreds, maybe even thousands of species. Their ability to grow in a variety of unique landscapes, such as the more mountainous regions, cliffs, and swampy areas. So they grow generally everywhere. These trees provide shelter. They grow quickly, oftentimes can be harvested for medicines that we use all the time. They're a huge portion of the total biomass of the rainforest, and they grow pretty quickly. Planting. By planting these examples and then several more that I didn't have enough time to present, and studying the rainforest in interactions among different species, we can better replant rainforest in a way that is quicker and is more closely resemblant to the way the forest was before it got deforested. Planting is something that can take time, patience, research, attention to detail, and this is as to not throw off the balance of certain species while hindering others. The rainforest is a very unique symbiotic and parasitic relationships that form this massive biosphere, and we don't want to interrupt that with planting too much of a species or not including another one. So it is a very meticulous process. By using what we already know about rainforests, this is the summary, we can conclude that it is a very complicated, diverse system that allows many species of both plants and animals to thrive. But simply planting trees is not enough to reforest the areas that we have cut down for a variety of reasons. So, by using diverse planting methods and selecting multiple plant species of different varieties, we can definitely better help the forest heal from its deforestation and heal quicker and have a better resemblance to its original state. And these are my sources. Thank you.